You're visiting the Mom Next Door and our stories of faith. I'm glad you dropped by for a visit. Please stay a while and hear what the Lord has done in the lives of moms just like you and me.
Well, I am having way too much fun already, and I finally had to hit the record button because I realized you guys are missing out on the fun that I'm having right now with my guest, Kelly. And so I think we're going to first jump back I want to tell you how I met Kelly. And I have to say, I don't really remember when or where we met. I was trying to picture that in my mind, and I honestly can't remember. But what I do remember is at whatever point you guys had lived in Oregon for a while, and you invited a bunch of us big family moms over. So what I remember is sitting at your house with like 2 or 3 other moms. And I think we had like 35 kids between us or something.
That's probably true.
And we were just sitting upstairs, drinking coffee, tea, whatever, having a great time. And we were just reveling the fact that all of our kids were having so much fun together, and we weren't having to, referee. We weren't having to referee a bunch. So we were just sitting there enjoying each other's company and the fact that our children were having a good time. And it was just so good to be with another mom that understood our life and understood our life challenges. But it wasn't long after that you guys ended up getting transferred out of state again. And I was like, oh, darn it, I missed my opportunity to get to know Kelly. And I'm thankful that Facebook came in. We got to know each other and sustain a relationship online. And I have to say that you've actually been mentioned on this podcast before because, I don't know you'll probably remember this, but there were those days when I was posting on Facebook my sorrow and I was just bawling my eyes out that my son had joined the Army.
Bethany.
And yes. And so I was just wallowing in pity. And then you were noticing not only I was doing that, but you had another friend, Bethany, who was doing that. And you put us together and you recognized that 2 of your friends were heartsick for their sons that were gone in the Army. You put 2 and 2 together and you said, I wonder what the chance is that your boys are together. And
wasn't it fantastic?
I
it was so fun. I couldn't believe it either. When I was, because I think you had both put up like platoon pics or something where it had said it on, and I thought, wait a second, I think they're at the same place. And it was just unbelievable because you were both going through, of course, the exact same thing at the same time. And it was amazing to me. I absolutely loved it. God is pretty amazing.
I know. I love the way God works. And so since then, Bethany jumped on with me and we recorded, it was episode 29, about becoming a military mom, because she and I kind of ended up being there for each other. Our boys didn't end up being buddies, but they were there at exactly the same time going through the same things. So we developed a friendship to just help each other through that process of us becoming a military mom. So if a listener knows some mom who is releasing their child to the military, that might be a good episode to go through and listen to.
And I will actually probably do that. My son is an ROTC currently, so it's my turn. 1 more year.
Yes, and we're going to cheer you on then. Hey, well, why don't you just start out by introducing your family, whatever you want to share, background or...
Okay, so I'm Kelly Pint, and I was originally from Iowa. We spent 4 years in California while my husband was in the Army. We spent 4 years in Oregon, which is where we met, and I actually think it was a Salem homeschooling book sale. I think that was it. And we spent 4 years in Oregon, and then we got transferred back home to Iowa, to the Midwest. Let's see, my husband and I have been married it will be 25 years in June. And we have 12 children, 11 living. So our oldest daughter is Bree. She is 25. She's expecting her fourth baby. Christian is away at college. They were homeschooled K-12. Elizabeth graduated last year. She's in a nursing program at a local college, and she is getting married in June. Rebecca just graduated from homeschool this year. And then we have, let's see, Timothy, Abigail, Sarah, Daniela, Olivia, Catherine, and William, which is ages 16 to 6, are still at home homeschooling. And we have the unique scenario, of course, being a medical family now. I carry a diagnosis of motor neuron disease, which is a pending diagnosis, currently either primary lateral sclerosis or upper motor neuron dominant ALS. They look identical. The only difference is in one, the diaphragm paralyzes, in the other, it doesn't, but it is complete and total paralyzation from head to toe with the loss of voice in both diseases. They're kind of sisters. One has a longer lifespan than the other. The other one is expected, they gave me at diagnosis 3 years. They figure 3 years is average. About 80 to 90% of ALS patients will die anywhere from 2 to 5 years after their first symptom onsets. So I am 4 years from onset, which is miraculous. And we initially called the school and signed our kids up for school and felt no peace about it. None. So we have continued to homeschool the past 4 years, thank God, through the diagnosis and really learning how to be a very different family, or being a very differently affected family. Different perspectives, changes in relationships, changes in priorities, some for the good and some by far for the worse, but learning a lot about us and our relationship with God. So that's kind of who we were, and then kind of who we are, and the reason for the transition in between.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's good. And you know, for those listening, as we started chatting before I hit record, what we boiled it down to for our conversation right now is the fact that it's really hard to distinguish and take apart our roles. Are we going to talk about homeschooling today? Are we going to talk about mothering? Are we going to talk about marriage? Are we going to talk about your life with your diagnosis? And the truth is being a mom fills all that, and it all overlaps.
Yeah. They're just so melded together. You know, it's interesting with COVID schooling. COVID schooling has been a very, very big deal around here lately. And, you know, a lot of us who have been homeschooling for a long time, this is our 20th year. We're just about to wrap our 20th year. A lot of us have come alongside mothers who feel kind of pushed into COVID schooling. Iowa has opened up a lot. And so most people who were homeschooling for the purpose of COVID are back into school. But there was this interesting thing, and I realized that I had done it early on, in which homeschooling was a very nice compartment for me. We homeschool from the hours between this, and then I mom from hours this to this. And it occurs to me that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, we still have times where we try to do schooling, right? Just as a part of our routine and a part of our day. But the false separation of who I am doesn't exist. Mom is mom, and schooling is what we do, and it's all life. So it's all just becomes so melded. You can't separate one from the other.
Well, you know, and I think somehow when our children are before that 5-year-old age, that's kind of what our life is as a mom. We teach them to go potty. We teach them to, you know, sing their ABCs or whatever. And we don't think of that as a distinct, hey, we're doing a teaching role or we're doing a mothering role. It's just so all in one, you know, it's all melt together. Yeah,
it's
totally
that
natural.
Coming alongside and equipping thing. You know, you come alongside your 2-year-old and you equip him to go potty. You come alongside, but you know, when you embrace that coming alongside and equipping in your relationships, just as a whole, whether it's your kids or whether it's someone else who's in need at that moment, right? It's all that coming alongside and equipping. I think that's what God does for us. I think that's the relationship that we mirror. So yeah, exactly. We did it before they turned 5, and somehow magically at 6, all of a sudden it was supposed to be very formal, and we had set things we were supposed to teach them, and eventually that fades. So, and it is just that coming alongside.
So you and I both have a perspective of a lot of years invested in homeschooling, but I know with your diagnosis, that kind of also changed your orientation of what you wanted to do and what you wanted to accomplish. And what does that look like for your family? I was thinking, how have you reevaluated your educational priorities?
It's kind of an interesting thing. It's been an evolution for 4 years, right? Because initially we panicked. How do I categorize this as homeschoolers? We are both academically rigorous and relaxed, and those things seem to not be, they seem not to match up, right? But they are. We have high expectations and we push fairly hard, but we're fairly relaxed, and that's part of recognizing what's developmentally appropriate in the younger years. So of course we find out that I have 3 years essentially, and we are panicked and trying to figure out what we're going to do with our little kids. And we had family that suggested that it would be incredibly cruel to have children both lose their mother and have to transition to school at the same time. And we were hurt. We were angry. We wondered if maybe they were true. And we made 2 really important phone calls. One was to our local school district, and one was to the school district in which we open enroll. We have a homeschool program here that has 1,200 kids enrolled, 650 families. And the administrator of that is a homeschooling dad. And one of those phone calls was saying that I was pulling my youngest 4, possibly 5 out to enroll in the school system. And I cried through the whole thing. The next one, because I was diagnosed in the fall, so we were prepping for it was October. We figured we'd be able to get through the year. It would be what we were going to do for the next year. We went into the elementary school, and I went in very professional so that I would get taken seriously, and got into the principal's office, told her the scenario, was very detached about it, was trying to be very professional, and completely started bawling and felt no. And so of course we're like, wow, my kids tend to read late. I like to be relaxed. I love to read out loud. And so some of the younger ones were not where they would have been had they been in public school at that time. And so of course I felt this pressure, like, oh my gosh, we have to have these children at a certain part. But here's the funny thing is that is not conducive to what's on a mother's heart of, wow, you have 3 years with your kids. How are you going to spend them? Oh, well, we're going to spend it at the table, sitting, pushing, doing flashcards and learning how to read, whether they like it or not, and whether they're ready for it or not, we're going to push. And you know what? There was no peace in that. There was no joy in that. And why was that? That's because academics had all of a sudden pushed to my priority at a time when I knew better. I knew better than that was my priority. So it was an interesting thing. Okay, so I had told you earlier before we turned it on that the most painful story, and maybe this shows my vanity, in the Bible is Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha both had a heart for Christ, obviously. Right? So picture Christ, and he's coming to the table, and they're all sitting around, and they're going to prepare food. And Mary obviously loves him. She sits at his feet, enraptured by the words he's saying, but Martha loved him too. And Martha was a doer. And if you've ever read the 5 love languages, you know that people who speak in acts of service, they speak love by doing. So I know what Martha was doing, because Martha and me, we're like this. I'm her girl. And she was walking around and she was preparing food, and she wanted things to be just right. Not because she was self-absorbed or obsessed or needed things to look pretty, but because she loved everybody so much. She wanted it to be right for them. I know her. I'll bet it was what recipe should I plan? Should I add this herb? Should I not add this herb? And Jesus was exactly right. She was worried about so many things that she had herself at a frustrated level. And so finally, her priorities were all kind of skewed, and she was trying to love through the doing. And the next thing you know, she goes to Christ and says, look, I want to do this right. I need my sister's help. Essentially, can't you just tell her to come alongside and help me pull this together? And he says, Martha, you are worried about many things, but only one of them is needful. And as a Martha, I am telling you right now, that was a knife to the heart. Because how badly did she just want to sit down and cry and go, all I was doing was saying, I love you. I just wanted to be right. And then she was chastised for it. And he said that which needed to be said, right? Because otherwise she would have kept on. And that would have been hurtful to her. It was momentary pain so she could get her priorities straight, because she was a doer. And she needed to remember that resting in him was the only thing that was actually ever going to give her peace, because what she was going to do is leave that dinner, then move into the next thing and do the next thing and move into the next thing and do the next thing. And she needed to stop. And she needed to find her peace and her hope and her rest in him. And he needed to be sufficient. And she was missing it. And so, of course, we're signing up our kids for school, and I feel no peace because I'm doing exactly what she did. I'm loving my kids by trying to equip them, by trying to pile on all of this stuff of what I must do. And I'm not resting at his feet, because I just know I've been given the responsibility of these kids, and these things are what I need to do. And we stepped back, and Mark was like, maybe we're rushing into this too fast. I mean, the doctors think they know what they know. And, Kelly, maybe they don't know. And by that point, we'd been to the University of Iowa. We've been to Mayo. We've seen the best doctors in the country. And they didn't know what they thought they knew. Flat out, I was misdiagnosed twice. And even when they gave me a timeline, they weren't right. I needed to rest on what God had for me. And I will be the first to say that alternative school options may be what other families are called to. But for me, I wasn't. I was called for this time with them, ministering to them, letting the Lord minister to me. And I just needed to rest in who Christ was. And that was part of the journey, but it was hard for me to not do. Because doing is, large family moms are plate spinners. Because we tell ourselves, if we don't do the doing, then how does the doing get done? Because the children must eat, the plates must be cleaned, the kitchen must be, all the doing has to be done. So we're the plate spinners. So how do you both be the plate spinner and sit down at the feet of Christ? That story has always been hard for me, because Mary sat. And I've always been like, that was fine for Mary, but moms like us, we can't sit. And I didn't realize that I could do less, prioritize him more, and that was the only way I was ever going to find any peace. It was a hard learning curve for me.
I think so. And it's funny when we hopped on this Zoom to do this, I said, wow, you're the person I needed to meet with and talk to today, because I've been spinning, I've been running and running and running. And I even talked about it in our small group at church this last week. I said, I think that I'm at that point in my life where I have 4 that are adults now and 5 that are at home. And I'm trying to learn, how does that correlate? Like, I've always been the mom that's doing, and my children always needed me to do something for them. And now, true, the ones that still live at the house, I have things I need to do for them. But especially I see it with the children who are now grown and gone. And they don't need me to do for them anymore. So I need to learn how to just be. I need to learn how to be mom without doing mom. And how different is that? That's my
It's
relationship
entirely
with,
different.
isn't it? And that's my
It is.
relationship with my adult children looks totally different than it does with my little children. And I
Right.
think we do have to learn that. And it's something where you think, oh, I've got this mom thing all figured out. And then you realize, oh, my life has changed through circumstances. And what do I want? What am I supposed to learn here, God? Can you teach me how to do this? And I think that's part of it's why we're always learning. That's why we always need to keep growing in God's word, because there's always some new thing to learn.
Well, and I don't know if you see parts of you reflected in your adult daughters, right? But I have one who I see to be more of a Mary and one that I see to be more of a Martha. And I ache because I know that I instilled that Martha complex in one of them, thinking I was doing her a favor, right? And I thought, you're going to battle this. And she recognizes it, right? Because we've had this conversation before, but you're going to battle this throughout your being a wife and throughout your being a mother of how do I recognize my nature as Martha, and that's not the better thing. And it's a battle. I mean, it's constantly putting your nature in its place to do that better thing. I struggle with it even now, and I can't do half the things that I used to be able to do. It's funny. I was taking a writing class and we were talking about something, and I said, I don't need, and it was some pretty brutal writing for me. I mean, it was about 2.5 years ago. And so I just kind of poured out pain on paper. And I asked the question, what is a mother, right? If the mother can't hug, right? Because for those of you not listening, ALS is a disease of paralysis. One limb will start, it will become paralyzed. It'll flip over to the other side or to the matching. So in my case, it is my right leg that it started in, and then it should have flipped over to the left leg, which it did, but it also hit the right arm. So right now there's all signs in both legs and in my right arm. My left hand is still really good, but it's starting to slow down a little bit. It'll come up. I lose balance a little bit more in my core. Eventually my neck muscles will go, and eventually my ability to speak. And if you can hear the hoarseness, this happens at night after I've been talking a lot. I get a little bit more hoarse. And I had to ask, I defined myself as a woman, really, as a mother, because I became a mom when I was 19 years old. I mean, as I hit adulthood, I was a mom, and that is totally how I define myself, right? As a mother. And I asked myself, what is a good mom, right? What is a good mom? And that's what I attempted really hard to emulate, and spent all my time researching and executing and trying to be really intentional. And it was, and a good mom does, there's that doing again, X. And so, the question I really pressed myself with is, what is a mom if a mom can't do? If a mom can't hug, and a mom can't comfort, and a mom can't tell stories, if a mom can't pull you up on her lap and pat you on the head, and if a mom can't help you make your bed or teach you how to plant a garden or wash the dishes or make you a meal or give you a birthday cake, then what exactly is mom? And I really tormented myself for that a lot. And God taught me two things. One, my identity was never as a mom. My identity was as his daughter, and that's different. And I needed to see things through that lens. And the other thing is that it potentially, my biggest strength as a mom will be when I've lost everything and I can't do, and the only thing I can do is pray for them. I remember when you started wearing the bracelets. Do you know what I'm talking about, with the kids' names on it? And that really hit home for me, because of course I would pray for them as I went about my day, and they would come to mind. But that concept of intentionally bring my child to the feet of Christ each and every day was just not anything that had actually occurred to me. I mean, that's so shocking to admit, right? But I just wasn't doing it. And I thought, maybe my best season as a mom will be when I can't do, and when the only thing I can do is bring them to Christ. That actually may be the most effective I ever am. That's a hard thing to admit too.
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, I remember my grandma saying that when I'd go visit her and she was in a wheelchair and her arms were weak. And my grandma was very frustrated with herself that she couldn't do more. And I saw it from the perspective of this busy young mom with these 4 kids, 4 and under, that I was like, but grandma, just pray for me because I don't have time to do a lot of praying,
Right.
So for me, I saw that as like, oh, please, I need you to pray for me, and I do. I think that is, I also see that as I have 4 kids that live in different states than I do, right? And I have my son that's in the Army is being trained for the bomb squad. And, that's a little, a
Frightening.
little concerning, yes.
Right.
But yet I know I can't be there with them. I don't want to be there at the bomb squad, right?
Right.
I can't be there with my kids, and I want them to go out into the world and to wherever God called them to be and do what he called them to do. I can't be there, and I can't even put all the things in place to equip them. But
Right.
my prayers go out as a legacy. My prayers go out to uphold them when they're far beyond my reach. And really, isn't that better? Because you know what? I don't know that I myself would do that great of a good job. But by entrusting them into God's hands where he can take them and direct them, that's really what I want to do anyway. I want them to listen to him. I want them to grow in him. And yeah, we get so stubborn to think it's all about us and it's all the stuff that we do. And
Yes.
really, yeah.
Not so much. And it's such a letting going process. Like, you want to hold those kids so tight, right? You want to protect them. You want them to be yours. You want to do everything you were really designed to do, right? That nurturing, protecting thing. And yet we're so insufficient for the task that we have to let go and let God, but letting go is, and letting him do that in their lives, that's a hard thing. Yeah.
Yep, that's why I think we are all on this journey of faith. He uses
It
all
is a
sorts.
journey.
Yeah.
And it is a journey. And so often we don't have the ability to see the next season. I remember wanting to attend a retreat, right, with a friend, and she had emailed the retreat leader and said, we have small children and they're nursing. Could we just bring them with, and we'll just leave the room, if they're disruptive? And the leader had sent back essentially, no, we've determined not to allow that. And then she added, it's just not your season. And she's a large family mom. I'm a large family mom. And we're like, this isn't a season. This is our lives. This is forever. And for us, it was forever, in the midst of it. And I was thinking about that the other day, because our youngest is now 6, right? He's still super little. And my daughter, Bree, has little ones, right? And I can no longer fathom not getting a full night's sleep. It boggles me how many times she wakes up in the middle of the night. And I think, thank you, Lord, that that's not me right now, because I need my sleep. But it was a season. I still would have rather we'd gone. But but it's funny, the seasons that they come and they go. And I think that the Lord is really gentle with teaching us there are some lessons that I have learned in the last couple of years that I was not prepared to hear 4 years ago. That I needed the time and the space to be able to accept what I was coming face to face with. And I needed a measure of grace he had not yet given. So I'll be like Paul, not that I have yet achieved that, and not that I always do that which I ought to do or don't do that which I should not, but he's been really gracious and really gentle with what I've had to learn about myself. Yeah.
Well, Kelly, that has been a nice little visit. And the time just flies by really fast. And so I just wonder if you would like to close us out in this session by praying for the moms. Like, I don't know what's on each mom's plate. I don't know the ages and the stages of life that each mom is at, but I feel like they will be encouraged. I know thinking about Mary and Martha is pretty common as we are doers so much. So would you just pray for the ladies?
I will. Lord, I pray that you would come alongside each woman who's listening to this and be gentle and gracious with them and help them to know and help them to identify as a daughter of the risen Lord, of the Most High God. We praise you for who you are and for who you are to us, and that you are our Father. Lord, I ask that you would give them a measure of comfort that surpasses all reasonable understanding, that comes only from you, and that peace would reside in their heart regardless of their world situation right now, and that they would truly know that you see them and that you know where they are in whatever they're dealing with, and that you would provide them comfort, and that you would love them through this, and that they would have a tangible feeling of your love, and that they would rest in that, and that they would find peace in whatever situation they're in. In Christ's name, I pray.
Amen. So Kelly, if this really touched the heart of someone and they wanted to reach out and chat with you somewhere, where could they get a hold of you?
So I used to blog at www.truevineherbs.wordpress.com. My old blog is still there. I still go there every once in a while. I have not been there recently. However, people can definitely reach out on that blog, and I get those messages. So that is one way to touch base, and I welcome that, definitely.
Well, thanks so much for sharing with us. I love to hear your heart, and you are always an encouragement to talk to. So we will have to have you on another time. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Guess what? Kelly and I were having so much fun talking. She stuck around and we recorded another session. So make sure you come back next week to hear the next session with my friend Kelly. And are you interested in chatting about the stuff you hear on podcasts? So I just found out about a really cool app. It's called Good Pods. And you can listen to podcasts on Good Pods, but you can also go and have conversations about the things you're hearing. So when you download that app, come on and find me over at the Christian Women's Book Club and we can chat. I'm really looking forward to that interaction spot. It sounds like a lot of fun. And as always, if you're on Facebook, you can join me on my mom's group that's called Less Than Perfect Christian Mamas. See you there. I hope that you've been encouraged or challenged in your faith today, and that something we discussed prompts you to grow deeper in your walk with the Lord. If it has, make sure you tell a friend so they can grow along with you. And if you or a friend would like to be a guest and share about God's faithfulness in your life, please email me at podcast@tendingfields.net. Because when we tell of God's faithfulness, we never run out of stories. Whatever is true.